Hey pilots, DrainMan here. Today we are going to modify the QX7 remote to be able to handle the Crossfire module. If you are a FPV drone pilot and you're wanting to fly Crossfire but you have a QX7, you are going to need to modify this remote. So first off, the things you're going to need is you're going to need this remote, you are going to need the modification chip, and then you are going to need a battery because the standard QX7 does not come with a battery. If you got the QX7S or any other version of the Taranis QX7, then you should be good to go. You might get a battery, I'm not sure. But this model does not come with it. So these are the things you're going to need. Also, you are going to need a little bit of wire. So get a yellow/orange wire. You're going to need a black wire. You're going to need a red wire. And you are going to need, last but not least, a blue wire. Do you have to have these colors? No, you do not have to have these colors, but you are going to want 4 different colors, or you can just keep trying to remember which color it was, but I recommend just go with 4 different colors. Alright, first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and crack our battery open, and we want to go ahead and get this on the charger. You do not have to buy this exact battery, but if you do, it's an amazing battery. I like how long it lasts. I can charge it up and it will literally last for 2 weeks. It even has an LED indicator on it letting you know how the battery is charged. You'll have 2 reds, a yellow and a green, which is pretty sweet. So as you can see, this is in storage charge. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw this on the charger while we start on the remote. This is a 2500 milliamp hour battery. Alright, now that we have our battery on the charger, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to open up our Taranis. Frsky now sends them with these tamper proof. Oh look, mine's been tampered with. And we're going to cut those open. And then let's get the remote out. Get a sweet sticker pack, some instructions in case you need it, and it comes sealed, and some styrofoam. You do get, not to make this an unboxing video for the QX7, but you do get a lanyard, and you get a wire that you will need sometimes for updating receivers and things like that. You don't really have to have that, but it's nice to have. We're not going to mess with any of that today, because today we are going to focus on the Taranis. So I'm going to pull it out of the package. That is a sharp looking Taranis. This one is in white. Look at that, huh? That's pretty sharp looking. Nice. Alright, so right here, this is where your Crossfire is going to go. You're going to put your module right here. So we'll end up not needing this, but what we can do for the time being is hold on to this. One little thing that I say for FPV is never throw anything out. Alright, so let's go ahead and put this on the bench. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our lanyard and we're going to pull our lanyard clip off, and we are going to install this lanyard clip, because while doing this Crossfire mod, we are not going to want to, while doing the Crossfire mod, the telemetry mod, we're not going to be wanting to put all that pressure and weight all over our gimbals. So that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to take this, if it's a new setup, and you're going to pop this in. If you already had your remote and you already set it up, then you don't need to do this. Skip that part because yours is already done. Alright guys, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip our Taranis over. Make sure you have this installed, because if you don't, you're going to be putting all that pressure on your gimbal, see? This way we're not putting it on our gimbals. Go ahead and crack open the back of your Taranis. Keep track of all your parts. Don't be losing your parts. Keep your parts tracked. That way you're not losing them. Now there's 4 screws. There's 2 here and there's 2 here. You're going to pull those screws out. Okay, so now we have the 4 screws out. We're going to go ahead and open this up. One thing I want from you guys is I want you to be extra careful, because there's some pins right here and we do not want to bend those pins. Alright, once you have this off, set it to the side, and we are now in the Taranis. Alright, now that we have our Taranis opened up and ready to go for the telemetry mod, what we're going to do is we are going to set it aside and we are going to get the Telemetry Mod Chip prepared and ready. That way, when it's time to put it in and we have the remote all disassembled, it won't be difficult. It'll all be ready for us. All we'll have to do is put it in and solder it up. So go ahead and get that out. It should look like this. You're going to have 4 separate pins, and then go ahead and find something to put it on. I'm going to put mine on my chip holder. Alright, so now you have your chip stationed. You have it set on something. You don't want it moving around while you're trying to solder on it. It is a very small chip. It is not easy to work with, so make sure you secure it somehow. Use a helping hands. Use whatever's going to work for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to tin these pads. So right there we have our out pad. We have our in pad. Now we're going to do our 3.3 volt pad, and we're going to do our ground pad. Alright, so now we have our pad tinned and ready to go. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put some wires on it. So, let's go ahead and put some wires. So now is when your wires are going to come into place. If you went ahead and got the wires like I told you to, go ahead and pull off a little bit, strip off the ends. We're going to go through this together so that you guys are able to do it. After you have stripped off the ends, we're going to go ahead and tin these wires. So we'll start with the blue one. It's tinned. Yellow is tinned. Black is tinned. And the red one is tinned. So now we have tinned our wires. The very next thing we're going to do is we are going to get them put onto this chip in a certain order. And the reason why we're going to use this order is because it's going to help us later when we go to do it. So if you're not going to follow the color pattern that I'm using, just keep track of your color pattern so you don't get lost. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the black on ground, we're going to put the red on our 3.3 or our, our power. We're going to put the yellow on the in, and we're going to put the blue on the out. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's get in here so you guys can see what we're doing. Alrighty. Grab your tweezers, grab your wire, and go ahead and get it ready. Alright, so ground is on. Next up, we are going to do our red and put it on 3.3. Okay. The very next one is going to be our in. Our in we are going to do in yellow or orange, whatever you have or whatever you like. And the very next one and the very last one is going to be our out. We're going to do in a blue, or in my case, what is that, purple? I'm not sure. Whatever color you guys think it is, tell me, and we'll find out. Alright, so now we have our wires ready to go. We have plenty of length depending on what we need to do, because we know how far we're going to go, but you might not know how far you're going to go. So we got plenty of length for that. We've got our board ready. It's soldered up. Pads are tinned. We're going to clean this up, get the extra flux off. Alright, now we're going to move on to the next step. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this off of here, and we're going to get our, let's get our Taranis ready to rock and roll. So, set your Taranis down. Now, we have to get into here, and what we are going to do is there's a capacitor here. Let me see if I can get you guys in here. Let's go ahead and get you closer. We're going to get our light in here a little better. There is a capacitor right here. We are going to be utilizing this capacitor. So what we're looking for is, you saw the chip. The chip said ground, so we need a ground. Well, there's a ground right here. This side of the capacitor is a ground, as you can see right here. The other side of this capacitor is a 3.3 volt, as you can see right here. So we're going to solder the other side to this right here. The next thing that we need is this right here, and we are going to solder to S.PT, and what that stands for is S port, which is a telemetry signal. So we're going to solder to that, and then on the other side of this board there is a transistor. We are going to remove that transistor, and we are going to solder to that transistor. Alright, so let's get this board out, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it, and you do have to remove the transistor. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. If you don't have the correct if you don't have like a hot air station, it is going to make it a little bit harder, but I don't want to hear any excuses, because I've already done what, 5 or 6 of these, and I didn't have a hot air station. So I know that you do not need one. Alright, so pull the screws out of here. There's actually tons of guys doing these modifications without a hot air station. So don't think that you're limited to that, because you can pull that transistor off without it. I'm going to use mine because why not have a nicer, better, neater, easier job done, right? Alright, so let's continue on. We're going to go to the next screw. Now, you got to remove all these screws, but I want you guys to be keeping track of these. Don't just recklessly be pulling screws out and not keeping track of where you're putting them. Alright. And looks like we have 2 more right here, as you can see. We're going to go ahead and take these out now. This ain't the best bit, clearly. So what we'll do is we'll change our bit when it's time to put these back in, because the last thing you want to be doing is stripping out your screws. Alright, so you now have all of your screws out. You're ready. Alright, so the very next thing you're going to do after you have removed all of these screws is we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip this over, and I want you to do it very easily. You're going to flip this over and find maybe a little screwdriver or a little blade or something and get up under here, and you're going to pop these off. Okay? Because you got to take this off so that it'll let the board go. And remember, what did we say? We're going to put all this stuff in a pile so we don't lose it. So I'm going to set mine right there so I don't lose it. Now that I've taken my screws off, I should be able to flip this over. There we go. And this board. Now, another thing too I want to point out is I want to point out this right here. This is basically a little brushless motor. Oop, not brushless, excuse me. This is basically a little brush motor. And it's got like a little hammer here. And as it spins, it creates a vibration. And that's how your remote vibrates in your hands to let you know things, you know. Like, hey, telemetry, whatever. Alright, you're going to lift up this board and you're going to do it so gently, because there is a ribbon cable here. I know that you can't see it. Here, I'm going to take a quick second and I'm going to show it to you, because it's very important that you're easy on this. Do you see it under there? There it is. You got to be very, very easy with that. We don't want to mess that up. Alright, so lift this board up ever so gently. Make sure your haptic feedback isn't getting damaged or anything. Underneath is your screen. Do you see your screen under there? Be easy. We don't want to mess with that. Alright. Let's go ahead and pull this button stuff out. We're going to set it to the side like we talked about so we don't lose it. And then we need to position our remote to stay like this for a minute. So I'm going to find something to lay against here. And it's really just to hold weight. See how it's holding it? That's all you got to do is find something to hold it. And what we're focusing on this side of the board is a transistor. And the transistor that we are looking for is right here. Not sure if you can see that, but this transistor right here, it's called the Q400 transistor. We need to remove this transistor. So I'm going to show you guys how to remove it. Now, there are multiple ways to take this off. You can grab it with a pair of tweezers and just rip it off. You can use a soldering iron and heat up the edges and get them nice and warm, and then kind of like start on this side and then lift up and rip it off. Or you can do it the proper way and you can put flux around here and you can use a hot air gun and get it off. Alright guys, so the first thing we want to do is go ahead and apply some flux. Because of the angle we have, the flux is most likely going to drip down the board. That is no big deal. We will clean it up after. You might hear a little bit of noise. That is going to be my flux fan mixed with my hot air gun. So don't worry about that. Let's get this positioned and we're going to start to heat this up. You should start to see the flux melting. We're going to get in here. We're going to heat it up. Alright. Now that we have that off, we can go ahead and hang up our hot air gun. We can then shut off our fan, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to clean up some of this flux. First I'm going to soak up the extra flux with a Q-tip. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some alcohol. And I'm now going to clean it up. Let me pull out so you guys can see what's going on. Grab some alcohol and clean up this flux. Okay, so now we have our flux cleaned up and we have our transistor removed. We can now begin to wire up the mod. So this right here are the connection points of the transistor. There is one here, there is one here, and there is one here. We are going to be soldering to this one, so I'm going to put a fresh bead of solder on that one. Get my soldering iron out, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a fresh little bead of solder, nothing crazy. See that? That's all you need. You don't need much. And then let's go ahead and pull this up so I can get you guys back into view, so you don't lose train of thought, like, you know, your vision aspect ratio deal. The transistor that we removed is up here in case you lost track of it when I zoomed out. We're going to flip this over, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to get an idea of where we're placing the telemetry mod. And the reason why is because I don't want to have too much extra crazy wire. So that's why I'm going to set it in place and I'll know what wire to cut. So at this point, at this time, you guys need to get a little bit of double-sided sticky tape. So this stuff is about the right width but not the right length. So I'm going to grab a little piece. Let's see, we're going about yay size. I'm going to squish it on now, and then we're going to cut off, if I can reach my scissors, and we're going to cut off this extra. Boom. So now we don't need this. There we go. So now we have our double-sided sticky tape. If you want to clean it up a little bit, feel free to. Cut off the extra. Gonna cut off the extra here. That just shot right into the remote. Just my luck. Alright, so there you go. We now have our double-sided sticky tape ready to roll. I'm gonna pull that piece out that flew in. I think it landed right there. Okay. Alright, so let's get this back. Alright, so go ahead and peel off your double-sided sticky tape. I apologize for the newer guys. I don't want to blow through this too fast, but for the guys that do know what they're doing or just trying to get the mod done, I don't want to be wasting their time and dragging this video out. So I want you guys to feel free to link your comments or questions in the video description. Alright, so right here is a chip. We are going to utilize that chip, and we are going to place that right on there. That is perfect. Give it a nice little wiggly wiggly so that we can be sure that it's nice and tight. So now that you have that set, we are ready for the next step. Okay, for the guys that had an SD card in here, remove it. You don't want to be doing this while you have an SD card in here. If it's not in your way, then fine, don't worry about it. We need to find a good place, and I am thinking probably right here or maybe right here. But we need a nice place to run this wire because it does have to. Oh, we can do it right through here, it's looking like. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll go this way with it. But we're going to run this wire around. I'm gonna do it here, and if I need to move it, I can after. Now remember, we got to be easy on our ribbon. After you get over to this side, you will then use something. I'm going to use my screwdriver again, and you're going to prop it against here to hold this back. Don't put nothing too heavy, guys. You're not trying to hold down the world. You're just trying to keep this from flipping back over on you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run this over, and we are going to solder it to the front side of that transistor. So what I want to do is get my wire trimmers, and I'm going to go to about the length that I need, which is right there, and I'm going to snip it. And we are doing the blue wire, so if you used a different color wire for the out, this is the time to know which wire you used. Go ahead and tin it. Be careful tinning over your PCB. You don't want nothing bad to happen. Now I'm gonna try to zoom in so you guys can see this happen. There you go. Alright, I would imagine you can see that. What we're going to do is turn this around. So you see the extra bead of solder that we put on. We're going to grab our wire. We're going to bring it up and around. And we are going to solder it. Ooh, that's tough to get in there. Take your time, guys. This is not a race. After you're done, then you can race with Crossfire. Alright, so I was able to get in there, but I'm not 100% happy with it, so I'm going to move it in closer. Ooh. Alright, now I like it. Alright guys, couple quick things. If you are new to soldering, you are a new solderer, do not be sitting in there for a long time with your iron. It is not good. You cannot just sit there with your iron on this stuff. You will fry everything around here and burn it all up. So do not do that. You want to get your iron nice and hot. You want to get in and you want to get out. You saw how I did it. That's how you want to do it. Alright, we're going to run the wire behind here. I think this is a good spot right here. Be careful not to be touching this right here, because if you're touching that, I believe this is either a diode or, yeah, that's a resistor. So be careful. You do not want to be touching that resistor. It is not a good thing. And now that this side is done, we are going to go ahead and reassemble the board back so that we can work on the other side. So I'm going to turn my Taranis back this way so my radio is facing straight. And we're going to pull this screwdriver out. Well, actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and do something. We're going to go ahead and set our buttons in place. So that one goes there. This one says page, so I know that that is my top one. And this one says exit, so I know that is my bottom one. And I want to go ahead and set those into place now, so that way I don't have to deal with it after. Alright, and then flip your board back over. Do it very easy, guys, because we do not want to rip that ribbon cable. I know I keep saying it, but I just can't stress it enough. Alright, do you see how nice that went back? That went back very nice. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop back in my haptic feedback so that nothing happens with that. Now, these do come loose sometimes. This one is not very tight. I'm not going to mess with it, but if it does loosen up on you, you will put a little bit of hot glue or something on there to hold it in place for you. Just be sure that if you're going to work on that, do not get hot glue near this portion of it, because if you do, then your haptic feedback won't work. It won't be able to spin. Alright, so moving on. We're going to move on to wiring the rest of this up. The next thing we are going to work on is we are going to work on our in wire, which is the yellow or orange wire, depending which color you have used. If you used your own color coding system, be sure to use the 1, 2, 3, third wire. It'll say in on it. That is the one that we are going to work on next. I'm just trying to find a camera angle that works so that way you guys can see it happen. Let's see if I can get the light. There we go. Alright, so grab your soldering iron, get your solder, and what we are going to do is we are going to put, basically we're going to do it like tinning a pad, and we're going to get a little bit of solder right here. Alright, I think you guys got to see that. And all we're doing is creating a surface to solder to, so that way our in can be connected to our S port. You could, in theory, use your heat gun and pull these pins out and then solder directly to this pad. But if you needed to update a receiver or something, you would not be able to through these pins. So I don't recommend doing that, because then you wouldn't be able to do that. Alright, next is we've got to get the yellow wire there. So we are going to measure and we are going to cut. And let's just pray I didn't cut it too short. Alright, next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and tin this wire and get it ready. Alright, soldering iron and a little bit of solder. Remember, guys, to be careful when tinning your wires over the PCB. If you drop it, it would not be good for the board. Alright, grab your tweezers and we are going to get this wire there. Alright, our length looks good, everything looks good, and oh yeah, that was perfect. That was a nice, perfect bite. Very successful too. So everything looks good. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on our ground and positive. I want to hit the positive first because I am a righty and I think it would be beneficial to me. So let's go ahead and do that. Take a little bit of solder and go ahead and get your pad tinned per se. Alright, did you guys see how I did that? I want you to be in and out. Don't be sitting in there with that iron. Just get it tinned. We're going to go ahead and we're going to tin the ground side too. We want to make sure we have enough to bite onto, but we do not want to just be blobbing solder everywhere. Alright, so I know it's tough to see, but I know that you can see that because I can see it in the camera. We have a nice ball of solder here, and we have a nice ball of solder here. So let's go ahead and figure out the length for our wires. Nothing is changing from the other two. We're going to figure out our length, something like that, and then we are going to trim that wire. Alright. Boom. Red is done. And we are going to go ahead and do the same thing for the ground. Might as well. Might make ground a little bit longer so we can kind of loop it around. The next thing you're going to do is you are going to sorry, losing the train of thought. Next thing you're going to do is there it is. Alright, so now that we have cut our wires, got them ready, we are going to tin them. That one is down there. Alright, so it appears that we need to tin this one. There it is. Alright, so now they are tinned and ready to go. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solder them up. So we're going to move ground out of the way. We're going to get the positive in here, or our 3.3 volt, whatever you want to call it. Alright, and ground. You got to be ever so careful because this is a capacitor. This is a tiny little component that is soldered onto this board. So if you get this too hot, I mean, it's going to come right off. So make sure you're in and out with that heat. Don't be in there playing around. It is not something you want to play with. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit of alcohol. I'm going to clean this up. I like a clean workspace. Alright guys, now the next thing we do is we start to put the Taranis back together. But it is good to go ahead and run power through it, make sure it's working, make sure everything is good, because if you put it all back together and you don't have power, then you have to take it back apart. We are going to take our battery. You should have a balance lead right here. You're going to plug this in. Pray you don't have any shorts, because if you do, you're going to fry everything. If you followed everything I told you to, then you should not have any issues. Go ahead and flip this back over. Make sure there's no metal around, and go ahead and power it up. Alright, so it was a complete success. Alright guys, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this with you. I am glad that it went well. We were able to be successful. There is one final test. I'm not going to do it with you guys because that's for a different video, but that's to put in your Crossfire module. That is going to do it for this video, but I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to put the remote back together so that you guys can see it. But for the guys who have already gotten what they need and don't need to stick around to watch the remote get put back together, thanks for watching. Share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.